And now we're going to go to the other end of the age spectrum that we see here in the British mini bikes, because now it's time for the pit bike veterans. So on pole for this one is Mark Davies with Simon Gates alongside Mark Evans, and Richard Rice will make up the second row of the grid. Steve Booth and James Mustika starts 5th and 6th respectively, and then it's Barry Prue and Neil Turner in 7th and 8th. I'm just going to shut the window because these things are quite loud when they get going. Joseph O'Neill and Andy Williams make up the 5th row of the grid. And Howard Taylor and Craig Willits will start on row 6. Riders just coming out onto track for their practice laps now. Gav Tappenden will start 13th, Jim Titchmarsh 14th, 15th is Paul Ward, Julian Grommet will start 16th, Gary Carter will start 17th, 18th will be Steve Allen, Chris Tagg and John Redshaw will round out the top 20. Then it'll be Dave Smith, he'll start 21st on the grid with Mark Hancock alongside. Dennis Latham will start 23rd with Mark Makutso alongside him. Row 13 on the grid will be Simon Lancaster and Preston Moss. John Greasley will start 27th, riding number 13, and then it'll be the 177 of John Pearson in 28th. 29th will be Martin Cockayne. And then 30th will be Stuart Poole. Rounding out the 31 bikes will be Andy Reid. Those last 3 riders unable to set a time in qualifying, but they're here for the race, and let's face it, that's the one that counts. Support coming in for the vets. So this is for riders 40 years of age and up. This class supported by Gloucester Bike Specialist. Experienced riders here. Had interviews with some of them earlier with Jacob Harris. Getting into position, just double checking the grids. Mark Davies in the 6, you can see that. Simon Gates alongside. And we've seen a range of different levels of success, shall we say, between the two sides of the grid. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top in this one. Just checking to see that everybody is in the right position. And then it will be all eyes on the green flag at the head of the field to mark the start of the race. Still a few things to be worked out there. Mark Davies, Simon Gates, Mark Evans and Richard Rice. This is for round 3 in the vets. I think we're all ready to go. Green flag in the air. The engine notes rise, and we're away for round 3 of the vets. It was a good start from grid 3rd, but our pole sitter got away well there. Davies, I think, has been able to hold on to it as he goes up the hill, but I think that Mark Evans may have got a jump at the start there and moved himself up as they work their way through Christmas Corner for the first time. Everybody keeps it clean. As Mark Davies works his way and leads the field down through the Zulus. I think it is Mark Evans who's managed to get himself up to 2nd place. Through the boot they go. The left and then 3 rights, which will lead them on to complete the first lap of the race. Great to see a nice clean lap indicative of the experience of this field. Mark Davies it is Richard Rice, who had a good start as well. So the second row of the grid did get away good because it's Mark Davies, Richard Rice, Mark Evans, Steve Booth, James Mustika, Neil Turner, Barry Prue, Gav Tappenden, Craig Willits and Gary Carter who rounds out the top 10 as they continue to jostle for position through Christmas Corner. We've got a yellow, we have got a rider off to Ride's left coming out of the second corner, so someone will be dropping down the timings. Mark Davies it is though, who's led this one from pole and continues to hold on at the front, goes across the line now. Richard Rice is showing as leading it, but I don't think we've seen that change for position.
Are we having transponder issues again?
I think we might do in the case of our leader, because I'm fairly certain that that is still Mark Davies, our pole sitter, riding the number 6 there. Indeed it is. So Davies does lead this one, but is beginning to come under pressure from Richard Rice as they come round the final corner. I'm going to double check this using the old-fashioned method. It's Simon Gates. That makes a lot of sense that he's managed to, yes, he's back up to second. So Simon Gates chasing Davies for the lead of this race. So to some extent, ignore what you're seeing on the timing tower as the 86 has run into problems. That's Steve Booth. So unfortunate for him. The leaders work their way into the boot. Davies followed by Gates. We're looking here at a battle further down. I think we're looking at the likes of Willits, Turner and Prue fighting over 4th place as they come through the boot. We do need to keep an eye on the battle over the lead though, because they're very close now going through Christmas Corner.
Into Inkerman's now, taking the downhill section.
Yep.
Still a gap of roughly 5 or 6 bike lengths between the two of them. You check his helmet there, heading into the boot now.
Yeah. It's the 46 that we can see. This is Richard Rice.
Showing up on your transponders as the leader, but still out in front are the two mentioned, Davies and Gates. As the two of them head up to Christmas Corner, our straight over first place, Mr. Rice, navigates the first couple of corners and takes it up to Christmas himself.
So, I think the reality is that Mark Davies leads, Simon Gates second, Richard Rice is third, James Mustika is pressuring him in 4th.
Also an issue here at Whilton Mill today is they have run out of flapjacks. For anyone who frequents the track, they will know that the flapjacks here are absolutely legendary. Unfortunately, they are no longer being served.
Rider going a bit wide there on the exit of Inkerman's, allows the opportunity to sneak up the inside. 4 laps remaining of this one.
Our leading pair coming across some back markers now, just picking up the back of the field, which could bring them closer together. At the minute it's one at a time, but they are coming up to this group of 3 that we see on screen at the minute. In fact, at the bottom of the screen now you will see our race leader. Could be this lap. We will have to keep a close eye on Mr. Davies. Currently showing 21st and 22nd, Mark Davies and Simon Gates. But as we have seen from the video evidence, they are running first and second. Into Inkerman's they come. There is still roughly 5 bike lengths between them, but we have a slew of 5 back markers now for them to navigate Davis going into the boot, looks to do two of them at once and nearly collides as well going into the boot. He's going to have to be a bit more careful than that from the race lead. He takes one of them with that manoeuvre, and I believe he'll have the second by the time he crosses the line. Indeed he does. 3 more to navigate as Gates struggles with the 2 he has just passed. Coming up to Christmas, Gates should see clean air as Davis takes one of his next back markers up into Christmas corner. There's now a bike between them, and Davis looks to have got a bit of a gap out from where they were this time last lap. Into the first of the Zulus, Davis passes another back marker. There are now 2 bikes between our first and second, excuse me, but Gates is rapidly passing them. Davis into the boot, picks off another back marker who seems to be retiring to the pit, and into the last corner, sweeps past another bike. Into the first corner now. There is, I should say, 1 bike in between the 2 of them, but the gap has extended. It has worked in favour of Mark Davis as Richard Rice surrenders 3rd place to James Mustika. Not picked up by us, but in fact, is that them on the camera? Yes, it looks to be like them. Mark Davis has navigated the Zulus. Behind him, Simon Gates. There are no back markers left between the 2 of them, but the gap is still sizable. Roughly a second separates them, maybe 2.
Yep, so apologies folks, just been talking to them next door in timing. We are having some problems with the transponders. Nevertheless, we're confident that it is Mark Davis who's leading this one. And Simon Gates challenging him. And there has been a great battle going on between Mostica and Rice throughout the race. We're just not convinced it's over first place, but I think it's over the last of the podium positions. So well done to them.
Once again, we are seeing the last lap board where the timing screen is showing us the race is finished.
Yep.
We have not yet had a man frantically waving a black and white flag.
We haven't, although I think we are close to it. Because I'm just trying to pick up our leader. Still, Richard Rice and Mostica are going for it, by the way. They're having a fantastic battle out there.
Mark Davis has just gone through, as has Simon Gates. They're heading up to Christmas now for what I believe to be the last lap.
And there is the checkered flag.
The checkered flag, which has gone to Richard Rice and James Mostica. This lap. Now, I'm not sure if they missed Mark Davis.
I think everyone is having similar problems at the moment, so there is an element of confusion here. Either way, I would say it was a brilliant race run by Richard Rice, and Mostica was putting pressure on him throughout, and it was, no matter which position it was over, it was a good battle going between Mark Davis and Simon Gates as well.
Yes.
So, that was your first race of the day for round 3 for the vets. Still fantastic conditions here at Whilton Mill. There's a slight breeze as well, which means it's pleasant. It's not unpleasant at the moment.
Yeah.
It's unpleasant maybe in the comms box.
Yes, speaking of which we should quickly open the door.
But
if anyone does like the smell of roasted commentators, have a whiff of the upper porter cabin on show in the left-hand side of your picture, where Howard and I are currently struggling with the heat in between these races. We shall pop out for a bit of fresh air. You can see.
Thank you, Jacob. That was the end of racing then in the junior SM90 class, and we are going to move on right away to our veterans. Second race of the day for them. Mark Davies is going to be on pole for this one. Simon Gates alongside Mark Evans, and Richard Rice will make up the second row of the grid. And then it will be Steve Booth and James Mustica on row 3. Row 4 of the grid will be Barry Prue and Neil Turner. And then 9th on the grid will be Joseph O'Neill, with Andy Williams rounding out the top 10. Howard Taylor will start in 11th, with Craig Willets in 12th. 13th will be Gav Tempenden, with Jim Titchmarsh for company on the 7th row of the grid. 15th on the grid will be Paul Ward, with Julian Grommet. In 16th, 17th will be Gary Carter and Steve Allen in 18th. Rounding up the top 20 will be Chris Tack and John Redshaw. Dave Smith will start from 21st with Mark Hancock 22nd. Dennis Latham will start 23rd with Mark Makutso in 24th. Row 13 will be Simon Lancaster and Preston Moss. John Greasley will start 27th with John Pearson 28th. 29th will be Martin Cockayne and Stuart Poole 30th. And 31st will be Andy Reid. And already they're coming out onto track. Which is why we suddenly have to close the windows again. So, this is our pit bike veterans. We've gone to the other end of the age range to our more mature riders, we're going to say.
Some of these have grey hair, Howard.
Some of them do, but it hasn't deterred them from coming out and having a good time.
They are filled with the spirit of youth.
They are, exactly that. Exactly that. So, it's a 31 bike grid. Good to see a healthy grid.
Martin Cockayne showing up there on the grid. However, I believe Martin's watching at home. He's helped us out with one or two driver names.
I think he's just on it, but at the circuit. I think he's following very closely here.
I could have sworn he said he had a broken leg.
Oh, did
maybe
he?
I've read that from someone else and attributed it to him.
I may give up on timing if it's literally a case of showing us. If it's showing us people who are at home, then we may have to call it quits on timing.
I'm sure if Martin is indeed back at home, still watching, he'll let us know in the comments.
Sure,
if not,
or
he'll
if
go
not,
ahead
he'll
and win
go
this
win
race.
the race. I was going to say,
yeah.
Right.
Do one or the other, Martin.
Right, Mark Davis.
He's certainly not showing up on the live timer.
So that's a good point, actually. Yes.
Let's have a look then. Mark Davis in that checkered helmet that I failed to remember earlier, on the left-hand side, pole position. Simon Gates to his left in all black. In behind, oh, the car is going out. I believe someone may have spotted some oil.
I think it's at the boot.
Yes, where that incident was later on in that last one.
We should say it was just a case of wheeling that bike off. It wasn't a serious incident that was down there. So, Mark Davis it is. Simon Gates alongside.
In behind, in the orange trim, is Mark Evans. And Richard Rice is in 4th place in the white suit and black and green helmet.
James Mostika, I was just doing a sort of hand across the throat thing to say, I don't know if he was just saying, we've got to wait a bit, folks, or if he was actually saying his engine's out. But the riders having to sit a long time here, of course, whilst they're sorting this out. They are working very quickly at the boot, so hopefully it won't be too long, but perhaps slightly unusual for the riders to well, that makes me think that maybe it's actually going quite far around the corner, so I'm wondering if it's actually related to the warm-up laps, because generally speaking you'd okay the track before letting the riders out for this race. Here we are then, race 2 of round 3 in the veterans class of the British mini bikes. Still balmy conditions here. In fact, we must be balmy to be in to be inside the box at the moment, because this is quite warm.
And away they go.
It is away they go
for another warm-up lap.
I was going to say, so it seems rather, yeah. There we go. I think they're just
to test it out, I'd imagine.
Yeah, they've held them
a quick window open whilst they go.
Indeed. Good point being made in my ear. It's to allow the course car to get off the track is why they're doing that. And I think the riders would prefer that anyway, because to have been sat there for that long, engines start to get very, very toasty. So,
they are being urged to slow through the boots, just to test it out. Looks to be like everyone's navigating it quite successfully though.
So, unless they compete in another class, last opportunity for these guys to have their fun and show us what they can do. Pat Grid, as I say, 31 bikes here for this race, which is close to as many as we can take on this circuit.
The ones to look out for though, Mark Davis at pole position on the right hand side of your screen. Simon Gates to his left, Mark Evans in behind with the orange trim, and in the whitish suit we have Richard Rice.
Red flag up, green flag up, engine notes rise, and we're away. And it's a decent start from Mark Davis. In fact, both on the front row of the grid got away well. So Davis will hold off Gates, but Gates is going to try and pressure him up the hill.
I believe it's a hold position for the top 4 or even 6.
Yeah, indeed. Good starts from all of them, or at least
equal.
equal.
The whole field.
Yep.
Into Winkelmans they go for the first time. Through the Zulus. No change in positions to report thus far.
Single file as it often is through the Zulus. Davis knows though that Gates is there. He ducks his head slightly on the back straight. It wasn't the perfect line for him, I don't think, through the boot. I think Gates gained on him slightly there. But here they come to complete the first lap then of this final race for the veterans of the day. Mark Davis leads, Simon Gates is second. Richard Rice did actually get past Mark Evans in the early battling there. So fifth is Steve Booth. James Mostica is sixth. Seventh, Barry Prue. Neil Turner, eighth. Then Andy Williams and Gav Templeton round out the top 10. Davis and Gates now getting a bit of a steal on the field, just eked out a few extra bike lengths there. Richard Rice trying to bait the toe of Mark Evans, and well he might, because Evans here, as we can see, is under challenge from Steve Booth and Mustika.
Through they go at the front 2.
I say that actually. Sorry, Jacob. Evans was actually very strong through the last part of that lap, and Mustika. Simon Gates is dropping down timing, but he's definitely still there, so that's a transponder issue and not an actual issue. Davis ahead of Gates. And there's a change there for third, I think. Mark Evans got back past Steve Booth there.
I believe that's someone off our third row, yes. Steve Booth getting into third. The two red trimmed drivers, Booth and Mustika, were on the third row, and it appears to be in third position. Yep, indeed, that is Mark Evans and Richard Rice in fourth and fifth.
Richard Rice who's dropped back, of course, because, yes. So Steve Booth passed Richard Rice, absolutely correct, yes.
Mark Davis and Simon Gates still out in front.
Yep, so this is Simon Gates chasing Mark Davis, and there he goes, he pops up on the timing screen. So that the battle for the lead, and then this the battle over second place between Booth, Rice, Evans and Mustika. The left, right, left of Zulus again. Back to look at our leaders. Simon Gates all over the back of Mark Davis, but Mark Davis has already absorbed some pressure from Simon Gates during today's racing.
They are very close at the minute, Howard. I wouldn't bet against Simon Gates having to move for the lead at some point during the next 4 laps.
Indeed, into oblivion, and the Crooker once more they go. Now up the hill. Is there any opportunity for Gates there? No, he's going to hold station.
Perhaps into Inkermans if he's close enough.
Indeed. Behind them, it's as you were, but still 4 bikes battling for third place.
So it'll be Booth, Rice, Evans and Mustika. But we follow our lead in pair. Mark Davis and Simon Gates into the boot once more. A bike lengths between them. what can Simon Gates do, if anything, to make an impression on the lead of this race.
On to a new lap. Further down the order, there's obviously plenty of battling elsewhere. Barry Prue is in 7th place, Neil Turner's 8th, Gav Tamperden and Andy Williams round out the top 10. They've just been exchanging positions as well.
I can't help but think, Howard, maybe Simon Gates is sat there waiting for
Yeah,
that last lap board.
I think there'll be an element of pacing oneself here, the element of surprise.
He certainly has the pace to stay within a bike's length.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of Mark Davis.
And these are short races, you know, it's about timing your move properly so that they can't come back at them.
But
I have to say,
concerned about is Steve Booth. He seems to be catching the two of them at the front.
yeah, he does indeed, doesn't he?
On screen to change.
And look at this,
place.
yeah, look at this. Mark Evans past Richard Rice, that is, isn't it?
2 laps remain. We'll probably be seeing the last lap board in a lap's time. Steve Booth isn't currently close enough to challenge Davis and Gates.
No, but he's just set the fastest lap of the race, 44.953, so he's really pushing here. This is the battle between Evans and Mostika and Richard Rice, who's also having a transponder issue at the moment.
Let's see if we can pick our leaders up for
Yeah,
the last lap.
leaders
This looks
going
set to be
through
one of the best last laps of the
day.
day.
Agreed.
Davis, Gates and Booth. Any one of those three can come out on top here, I think.
Here we go then, last lap board is out. Who's going to take this one? Mark Davies has led it from the start, but Simon Gates has something to say about that, and Steve Booth is setting blistering pace behind and is ready to take home the spoils if necessary. They'll all have seen the last lap board. Is there anything on for Gates into Christmas corner? No, there isn't, but he'll try and get the cut back out of the left to set himself up into Inkermans. Mark Davis somewhat wise to it, taking a slightly tighter line, it looks like to me. Then they'll go down the hill through the Zulus, 1, 2 and 3. Now can Gates get the drive off of this corner to set himself into the boot? He's having a look, he's definitely having a look, but Mark Davis is wise to it. And I think unless he messes up the last 3 apexes, it's going to be Mark Davis who takes this one round the last corner. Mark Davis is going to take the last win of the day, but my goodness, is it close across the line. 83 thousandths of a second across the line. Mark Davis takes it.
Well,
Simon Gates second, Steve Booth third. Richard Rice is in 4th.
As we said, Howard, he saw that last lap board. He thought about it going into the boot, but wisely he thought better of it. He wasn't close enough to make a lunge there. Very close over the line, less than a 1/10 of a second. Steve Booth ultimately couldn't quite close onto the back of them. Their pace was just too much for him. But yeah, great racing from all 3 of them. Great rides all round.
Yep, superb finish to that race. Brilliant to see. Great way to end the racing in the veterans class today.
And in the segue between these next 2 races, we have another interview here. Once again, a recurrence of an earlier interview we had with us now. Oh, Howard's just put his microphone back on. Did you want to say something, Howard?
Yeah, I was going to do an introduction, but you were doing a good job,
I
weren't you?
No, you
Dan
carry
Stamp
on,
has joined us in the box, and I'm going to shut up and let you talk to him.
Okay. Howard just turns back up there. Mr. Stamp, how's your day been?
Yeah, it's been great. First experience with the mini bikes, but yeah, it's been brilliant. Can't fault it. Absolutely red out there, like. But
how'd you get on in your race?
Steady away. Like I say, new to this. We had a few technical issues with the bike. Managed to get them sorted.